Good evening and welcome to the Carolina Weather Group for this August the 16th, 2017. I can't believe we are halfway through August. Thanks so much for joining us. If you are watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope, or if you're listening to our podcast on demand through iTunes or Google Play, thanks so much for checking us out this hour. Coming up, we're going to be getting to know the folks behind Weather Rate. You may have seen their branding, their name on maybe your local weathercast, but what is it all about? We're going to be talking to Bruce Fixman coming up in just a few moments. But first, as we always do at the top of each one of our shows, we're going to go around our panel here at the Carolina Weather Group and find out what's happening with each one of our panelists. And I can tell you here in Charlotte, it was another very hot day. I made the mistake of going out this afternoon and attempting to do something on the roof at about 2:30 in the afternoon, and that was not a good idea. It was very hot. Let's go north up to New Jersey, where our friend Peter is, and I think he is laughing at me. Peter, has the summer heat been intense up in your neck of the woods?
Actually, no, it is not. This whole month of August so far, it's only been 70s and 80s, and we've had a lot of like downpours and just rainy days so far this month. So if we hear anything about a drought, I'm going to be very mad because we've had plenty of rain to go around. But the next couple of days, still a couple cloudy days. Friday could be another kind of washout of a day. But the good thing is, it does look like the solar eclipse. We're only going to see about an 80% eclipse up here. Looks pretty good so far for Monday. Mostly sunny, mid 80s. So should be not too bad for Philly and surrounding areas. But hopefully the rest of August will get some warmer temperatures. It really has not been feeling like summer up here. And down at the Jersey Shore, it's been kind of rough because of Gert causing some high rip currents. So, yeah, we don't not getting too many effects from that, but just rip currents are the biggest problem with that next couple of days, along with those downpours. So that's pretty much it. It's been kind of quiet and just rainy. So, feeling
well, you know
like
what happened last time you said those exact words, Peter. You had a line of thunderstorms with an embedded tornado come on through. So
yeah, so. Expect that the next week or so.
Yeah, knock on wood. We had quite the storm come through South Charlotte the other night. I could not have counted the lightning strikes. It will probably be my tweet of the week if we do that later, just to show you the radar scope screenshot. But Peter, I'm so happy you mentioned the eclipse. You're the furthest north of all of our folks. Are you driving south to get as much of the eclipse as you can?
I am not. I'm going to try to enjoy it up here. I think we're getting like a 70 to 80% eclipse, so it's not going to be a full eclipse, but
remind me after the show to introduce you to my friends who live outside of your metropolitan area there, and you can hitch a ride with him. He's coming on down just for that on Monday.
There you go.
So he's driving whatever that is, 600 or so miles. So Steve, we will see you on Monday, my friend. Let's go on down to Charleston. We have Shay Gibson, who's going to let us know how things are in South Carolina, where they will be getting the full complete eclipse show come Monday.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, Monday is our big eclipse. We get full darkness for a good little while. I mean, I think just north of here, right near McClellanville, is going to be the area with the most time of darkness. So really looking forward to that. In fact, I think I can see Jared Smith here. I'm going to go ahead and introduce him. The weather here has been pretty hot. I'm going to talk about tropics in a little bit. But I want to introduce Jared Smith. He's with Charleston Weather. He does a fantastic job. He's been nominated for Twitter account of the year for the Charleston City paper. He does a really bang-up job on the weather, social media platforms, and really getting the word out. He just started a new website. I'll sort of let him introduce himself real quick and talk about the weather for Charleston. Go ahead, Jared.
Thank you, Shay. Gentlemen, it's an honor and a privilege to be on with you tonight. So started this in 2008, just a quick little thing. I started this in 2008. I started it with the name Charleston Weather, and from the humble beginnings of tweeting every text message that I would get from Weather Underground with the BlackBerry, get it out a little bit faster than everybody else. Things have evolved. I've written a lot of code to back it over the years, and it just kind of blew up. Just people started sending me storm reports, and it just kind of blew up, and here we are. So it's very fun to do, and very glad to be continuing this. So it was hot today, hottest day of the year, 98 degrees, a little boy band heat. As we might call it. The heat index got to 113 briefly at Charleston International Airport today. So hottest day of the year. But interestingly, the first heat advisory of the year, I was going back, I was just looking at Iowa Mesonet here real quick, and I can't tell you the last time that the first heat advisory ever in the year was issued in mid-August. So that's very, very unusual for Charleston. And it's just lousy for those of you who have had to do yard work, because I had a guy tell me, it was like, it's been raining and now it's like 98 degrees and it's just awful doing yard work. So it's like, yeah, you just can't win. Rain's coming back later this week, and I got to tell you, as much as I'm looking forward to using these guys, trying to keep expectations solidly set, because climatologically speaking, August is cloudy. So we'll see how it goes. So.
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you, one thing I noticed today is I was really watching the sea breeze, because we have this westerly zonal flow really pushing that heat dome over us from the northeast Gulf of Mexico high. So that's sort of a downsloping westerly wind that sort of sticks all day in the background, but then the sea breeze undercuts it at the coast. And I'll give a quick little presentation. This is using Datascope, and let me know when you can see it.
We got you, Shay.
All right, cool. So let me make sure I got the right screen there. Okay, I may have grabbed the wrong screen. Here we go. Let's try this one. There we go. Okay, so if you notice this is the Isle of Palms. Right around 2 o'clock p.m., 1:30, 2 o'clock p.m. Let me switch this to the air temperatures. And you can see right there, right before 2, the little temperature drop. It was heading up into the low 90s, and then it dropped down to the mid 80s. You can see it sort of stabilized right around 85, 86 degrees, which just happens to be the sea surface temperature. So without storm assistance, this is about the lowest the air temperature can get with the sea breeze, with the onshore cooler flow off the ocean. And just to show you how warm the ocean is, that's about as cool as it can get on a day like this. So 85 to 86 degrees, that's pretty warm for the Charleston area with the sea breeze. I mean, normally you would cool down 10 to 15 degrees, especially when you get into the cooler months. So just a little nugget of information there. Looks like our sea breezes are going to stick around for a couple of days as we have a cold front. But more importantly right now is the activity in the tropics, because things are really ramping up. This is normal, by the way. I want to remind everybody where we are in our season. And we are right here. We are just now getting into the active period of the tropical season, which is about the middle of August, starting usually about the beginning of August and going right through September the 10th, which is the peak of the season. So now we're starting to see live activity. Here we go. The National Hurricane Center, the 3 areas that have been circled, and now are giving a pretty good chance for all 3 of these areas to develop. This one right here is Invest 91L. This one's going to slide to the south across the Caribbean. Looks like it's going to be a concern for the Lesser Antilles. The winds, it could become a tropical storm. It may even be a tropical depression at this point. They're really watching it. There's some spin to it. I don't want to dive into each one of these storms too much, because we want to get our guest on here in just a minute. But just to give you an idea of what's happening out there, one sliding to the south, we have disturbance number 2, which is Invest 92L, which looks to be heading towards the northern Lesser Antilles, maybe north towards the Bahamas in a run over time. That's a 40% chance next 48 hours, 50% chance next 5 days. It will be following an upper trough that's extended to the south, so it may be running into a little bit of upper shear in a few days, which may limit its ability to develop. But then once that trough sort of fades out to the west, may open it back up for development. So we're going to have to really watch that one if you're in the Bahamas or the Puerto Rican area. Some of those islands. We have another one that just came off the coast of Africa, given a 40 to 50% chance, 40% chance 48 hours, 50% chance next 5 days. This is actually, let me back up, disturbance number 3. 0 and 40. I was looking at that incorrectly. I thought I was saying it wrong. 0% chance 48 hours, but 40% chance next 5 days. It's a rather impressive wave. Each one of these is in a rather conducive zone for development. So this is the time of the year where we got to watch, can they make it all the way from the Cape Verde area to our neck of the woods? That's the big question. We just don't know yet. It's too far out to assume anything. So don't believe any hype you see in the news. Don't believe any of these hypercanes or any kind of words that you see, anything hitting the coast anytime soon. We still have 4 to 5 days for anything to be of concern for the United States interests. So 4 or 5 days, if things look like they're going to progress towards any part of the United States, then we'll know more. But right now, they're just too far out there, and there's too much going on. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to you, James, unless there's any questions about the tropics.
No, I took a look at that this morning, and I went, hello, August is here. And the tropics are beginning to rear their ugly heads. So Shay, thank you for that breakdown, and I'm going to use that as a segue to introduce our guest. Joining us is Bruce Fixman. He is with Weather Rate, and I wanted to give him a chance to not only introduce himself and the company in which he is representing tonight, but also, just like we did, to tell us a little bit about the weather where he is. Bruce, where are you joining us from tonight?
Hi, thanks for having me tonight. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. Pretty exciting times here. I think
is it monsoon season out there?
It is. We're on a short break right now. It typically happens in early to mid-August. We go on a break or two, and we're in one of those right now where the dew points were unbelievably low, dropping to the upper 20s and 30s in Phoenix this morning, which is extremely low for this time of year, even during a break.
So Shay was mentioning a moment ago not believing hype on the internet about hurricanes and not believing everything you say. As I'm familiar with your company, one of the purposes you guys serve is to give that seal of approval for the public to let them know that they are, in fact, receiving weather from an authenticated source. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. It all began about 14 years ago. Well, actually long before that, but I just got tired of every TV weather guy or person saying, we're the most accurate, we're pinpoint. And I said, I remember we used to do these great forecasting contests back at college. And I wonder if I could hold these guys accountable in some way and have a forecasting contest essentially for them. And I did some research and figured out a way to make this all happen. And 13, 14 years later, Weather Rate's going strong.
So it started as a contest, you're saying?
No, it started as a weather contest in college. The idea came from that, where we did forecasting contests up in SUNY Oswego up in New York. It's where I went to school. And that gave me the idea many, many, many years later for holding a contest, if you will, for TV meteorologists. It's not really a contest, but it gave me the basis of the idea of how do we hold TV meteorologists accountable for getting it right. And really, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to acknowledge it does remind me of my college days, and I think we did something at the time called Weather Challenge.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably very, very similar. I don't remember what the name of our contest was. I know it was a lot of universities from all around the country participated, and I think you'd have a city for every 2 weeks, and then you switched and did this for a couple of 3 months, and then there was local and regional and national winners as well. No.
It sounds very, very similar. I know your brand is on WBTV television here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm curious to know how any station's relationship with your company comes about. Do they contact you? Do you contact them? Do they have to battle it out? How does that work?
That's a great question. So we do the research in the top 85 markets, whether the stations want us to or not. So we're collecting the data one way or the other.
Very nice.
We're kind of like JD Power. We do our independent research. And then at the end of our annual research, which ends on February 28th each year, 29th in leap years, we will know who the most accurate is according to our algorithms. And that's when we contact the station and say, hey, you guys were most accurate for the past year according to our research. Congratulations.
So what you're saying is the month of February, you essentially created your own ratings period for weather folks.
Right. So it ends in the end of February, and then we start all again on March 1st and run for another whole year.
Very, very nice. I'm curious to know, you're from or went to school in upstate New York, and you picked February of all months. Was there a snow background meaning to picking a month in winter?
No, it has absolutely nothing to do with the timing of weather, actually. When I first started the company, we were doing research every 6 months. And we did a 6-month research and a 6-month license, if you will, for a station to say that they're the most accurate according to Weather Rate. And we did this for 2 years, and the TV stations were telling us, this is really great, but this is too much of a hot potato. We can't have this bouncing around every year. So can you make it a longer research period? And so that's when we went to an annual research. To get back to the February, it just timed out when we started the company, and after those first 6-month intervals, that's how it all played out.
And I'm sure the newsroom folks are thinking, well, February is a rating period and everyone's here and not on vacation, so that times out nicely. You mentioned a moment ago licensing, and I was going to kind of dig into a little bit. How does that relationship work? Are they paying you? Do you pay them? I have to imagine at some point this is a business.
It is a business. So kind of like JD Power, we do our research at our expense. We have employees, we have meteorologists on staff. And then at that at the end of the research, the annual research, we contact the station that's most accurate in each city, and we offer them our seal of approval, if you will. And there is a licensing fee for them to go out and tell the world, especially their city that they're in, that they're the most accurate according to an independent research company.
Do you find certain newsrooms, certain businesses, certain cultures are more open to that? Or how has it changed over the years? Are you guys becoming a little bit more recognizable when you're cold calling people and say, hey, we think you're the best?
I remember the first station that I called after we did our research, and they said, you're who, and you're doing what? it was pretty funny. And for the first several years, I would head over to the NAB show, National Association of Broadcasters, and RTNDA up in Vegas, News Directors Association. And I was kind of a walking billboard, and I'd find people, and I'd just talk to people and got the word out there. And over time, especially in the 85 markets that we're doing, the word got out about WeatherRate. And getting back to one of your earlier points, do they battle it out? And this is the beautiful part about WeatherRate. I love when there's good competition in a city, and I've got the guy, the weathercaster, who's going at it across town, rivalries, if you will, because in the end, the winner is the viewer, because they're getting they're getting really the best forecast these guys can come up with, and not be and not just shrugging off the forecast for tomorrow, if you will.
So Bruce,
Sure.
How do you
Go
pick?
ahead.
I'm sorry, James. I was just going to ask, how do you pick which cities, which stations that you're going to sort of watch and verify?
We started when we first started doing the research. We were doing the top 50 markets, and then over a couple years later, we added 25 more, and then a few years after that, we added 10 more. So we do the research in the top, approximately the largest 85 markets. And I'm sorry, what was the follow-up part of that question?
Oh, how do you pick which stations that you're going to include? I know, like, you have the major network stations. I assume you take like a metropolitan city or the capital city, and then you take the major syndicate. I'm not sure if that's the correct terminology. They're the syndicated channels like ABC, NBC, CBS, and then you sort of pull from those weather meteorologists. Or
so yeah, in most markets, it's the four major players: ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox. In some, there's a little bit less, and often that's because another station in town is owned by the same company, and they use the same exact weather forecast. Here we go, and in other markets, there's some independence, and over the years, some cable stations have asked if they could be included in the research as well, and we've agreed to that. I think we do that in. I think we have one in Orlando. There's maybe 2 or 3 cable stations that we've included at their request.
So I got a follow-up question on that, Bruce. As you're taking a look at the list of stations who have your current seal of approval, or stations that are maybe being vetted by you guys in February, technical question. Sure. How do you see all these stations?
Okay, so let me just clear one thing up. It's not just we're not vetting them in February. It's a 12-month research.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry if I misunderstood.
Yeah, no problem. No, it's pretty comprehensive. It covers all the seasons.
Okay, all right. So let me walk that back a little, because I was thinking that it was every February that you guys were reviewing the stations and then renewing the licensing for the 12-month period after that. So it's all month long that stations are being reviewed.
Or every day, 365 days for a whole year.
Wow. Okay. So what was it about February that stood out in the earlier conversation we were having, just so I can make sure I understand the significance of that month?
There is no significance. It had something to do with when I started the company, and kind of coupled with TV rating periods. And I don't really remember how it all happened, but the research ended on February 28th, and that's the way it was.
I got you. I apologize for that earlier confusion on my part. So all year long, you're looking at these stations. Let me ask this question then. At what point, as you're reviewing stations, might the certificate, the approval that you guys issue, change hands?
Okay, so the way we work it is, so the stations that you see on that list there, they were the most accurate from March 1st of 2016 to February 28th of 2017. And now they're licensing with us for a year, licensing their previous year's accomplishment.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So during the year, this list will not change unless we add new stations. But we don't publicize the current year's research to the public until the end of the research year. Does that make sense?
I believe it does. So
Okay.
so right now you're looking at stations who might have your brand come next year.
Right. We're looking at all 85 markets, 300 plus TV stations that we're looking at right now. And we know the scores, and the TV meteorologists have access to the information, which is updated for them every Monday morning, so they can kind of track along where they're at.
Oh, very, very interesting. I do have a brief question, and I think to Shay's point a little bit, you mentioned top 85 markets. I come from television. I assume you mean based on the way Nielsen will rate those ratings. Is that accurate, or how would you explain that to someone who's not familiar with those ratings?
Each TV market is called a designated marketing area, I believe it's called, right? So the top 85 would be the 85 largest TV markets in the country.
Gotcha. Just to give folks an idea, number 1 being New York City, 85 being roughly what size city we're talking about?
Madison, Wisconsin.
Madison, Wisconsin. Okay, so we're running the gamut of some pretty major metropolitan areas there. Back to my earlier question, how is it that you guys go about watching these stations all across the country? I can't imagine you have somebody physically in 85 different cities.
No, but that would be really cool.
It would be.
It'd be also probably pretty expensive. Excuse me, guys. So we get the forecast one of two ways. We prefer the TV meteorologists at every station log onto our website every day by midnight local time and enter their forecast that way. If they don't do that, then we're pulling an image of their TV forecast, their webpage, and then the following morning, our staff will take that information from their weather page and put it into the database manually.
I gotcha. And are you just verifying those numbers with the National Weather Service observations at the end of the day, or what makes it accurate, I suppose? Okay, so every day we've got one person collecting all the forecasts that weren't entered in by the TV meteorologist, and then we have another employee. That person's job is the best job for Weather Geeks. I call it a weather investigator, because they're looking to find out what happened the day before, actually 2 days before, the way we do our research. And that person gets to look at all the observations from a city, the National Weather Service data. We look at some products from NOAA to find out where the precipitation, rain or snow happened, because it doesn't always rain at the airport, and sometimes it does there or nowhere else. So we've got a pretty good system to figure out what's going on across the city. I was just thinking that, and Shay Gibson himself has a background in equipment that does observations, and I imagine, Shay, that was on your mind as well.
Oh yeah, we got plenty of points in Charleston. I know that, and most of the coastal United States, we have some pretty good points of interest. But like you said, even for places like Charleston, where you have this this really very complex dynamic at the land-sea interface, it could be one temperature, like I showed you with the sea breezes earlier, 85 degrees at the beach. But then inland, you have 98 degrees with a heat index of 113. So, a lot of variables there in different cities, especially when you get into urban heat island effects. I'm sure that your meteorologists are aware of these in some of these larger metropolitan areas. Correct, Bruce? That's correct. Now, for the most part, the temperature, we take usually from the major airport in town. That's usually the case, but not always. But then there are cities like San Francisco, and you say, holy cow, they've got these microclimates that change from 2 miles, from the immediate coast to the bay to inland. And just starting about a year or two ago, we actually broke down the research. So they're forecasting for each of those different microclimates in our system. And we're verifying for each of those microclimates. And as we go on, we'll probably add more of those to different locations if it's needed. Now, do your meteorologists have all the different eddies mapped out in their minds? I don't know about that. That is probably one of the toughest climates when you get into middle and northern California. Wow. Yeah, it sure is.
I know Jared has a question. We'll go to him in just a moment.
Yeah.
Don't come too far off that last point, Bruce. Is that what made you guys mark the cap right now at 85 markets because there is just a lot of data for you guys to go through?
Yeah, exactly. There's a ton of data. I can't even imagine how many millions of points of data that I have accumulated over 13, 14 years of doing this. But you figure 300 plus TV stations every day, and a lot of variables, which we haven't talked about yet. We'll get into that in just a minute. And then all these observations from these 85 plus cities now, because some cities we break it up, like I was saying in San Francisco, and then there's some cities in the Midwest where their DMA is so wide that there's 40, 50 miles between temperature readings or just conditions in general. So we've broken it down in a couple of other cities as well, just based on distance. So tons of data.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Folks who might be watching tonight from the Carolinas could probably best relate to, if you live inland versus the coast or inland versus the mountains, and then you get into some terrains like you have on the West Coast, and it becomes even more complex. We do have a guest panelist tonight. We talked to him off the top of the show. His name is Jared Smith. He's outside the Charleston, South Carolina area. Jared, I understand you have a question for Bruce.
Yes, I do. So, Bruce, you mentioned at the beginning how you started this and you didn't like the hype from television weathercasters and everything. And I feel like that's gotten a lot better. The new hype is now in social media. The new hype is now on the internet, where literally anybody can pull a weather page out of various locations and post a 384-hour GFS and say, oh, look, there's something off the southeast coast tomorrow. Have you thought about maybe getting into social media ratings or finding a way to help combat that?
Excuse me. We have thought about that. I'm just not really sure how that's going to work in our model. Because like you said, there's so many independent folks out there and groups like yours, which are doing great things. It's such a great public service. But in the end, the number one reason why people watch their local news is the weather. And that's why we still stick with going through the local TV stations.
Yeah, I'm recalling a study, and I won't quote it verbatim because I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it once lists the top 5 reasons that people watch local TV news, and 4 of the 5, I think, were weather, current conditions, severe weather, radar. I forget. And the 5th one was breaking news. So,
yeah, it's definitely weather. It's number one. It has been for a long time, and I imagine even with all these other outlets, the apps and everybody's got an app for the weather and radars, but still, now granted that news viewership is declining as a whole on broadcast television, but the number one reason people watch the local weather, local TV, is for the weather.
You mentioned a moment ago, you guys have a lot of variables that you wanted to go through. Guide us a little into that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So we're verifying the accuracy of a lot of different data points here. We're looking, of course, at high and low temperature. We are looking at sky cover. We're looking at precipitation, timing of precipitation in the first period, which would be for tomorrow. We're looking at strong winds, dense fog, severe thunderstorm, and different snow and ice accumulations. So we've covered a lot of territory.
That is a lot of territory in 85 different cities. Are you guys actively in 85 cities right now, or are those just the eligible cities?
So that's the eligible cities that we do our research in. The list that you see in front of you has 49. We've just added another city in Jacksonville, Florida. So we have now 50 of the 85 markets that we do the research in have signed on with WeatherRate to tell the world they're the most accurate according to an independent research company.
And I'm just curious, what happens if a station cold calls you?
For example, they from a city that's not in the top 85?
Either or a station who is in 85 who thinks that they're the most accurate.
Well, if that's the case, and they're disputing why the station across town is most accurate, we're happy to share the data with them, put the spreadsheets together, tell them how to read the spreadsheets, and once in a while we'll go through the data together, and sometimes they just read the data on their own, and then typically I don't hear back from them. So I guess they've figured out that we're not just this fly-by-night thing, and we've got the data and to prove what we're saying.
Very, very cool. I'm just going to pause for a second here, Bruce. We're at about the bottom of the hour. Just want to let folks know, if you are joining us for tonight's live broadcast here of the Carolina Weather Group, you can find us on Facebook and YouTube and Periscope. And to comment in with your questions for Bruce, he is with Weather Rate and telling us all about their product. We also have with the Carolina Weather Group our friends Peter and Shay and a special guest Jared on tonight who are going to be asking some of their own questions as well too. Bruce, I want to just pause for a moment and take a step back and wondering a little bit more about yourself. How did you catch the weather bug?
Oh, like probably everybody on this call tonight. It started at a very young age, and that's the thing about us meteorologists. Most of us, it starts like 5 or 6 years old. For me, I had an older brother. I still do. He's 3 years older than me, and he would love to watch the thunderstorms come in. This is in suburban New York City, down on Long Island, and we would watch the thunderstorms, and he just got really excited about them, and I got excited, looking up to my big brother, and I got the weather bug, and I knew right from a young age that what I wanted to do right through college. So I was very fortunate just to take the classes that I needed in high school to get ready and head off to Oswego in New York to get my degree in meteorology.
Okay. Anybody who watches this show often enough knows where I'm going with this next question. Where on Long Island? I'm from Smithtown.
Oh, I grew up in Levittown.
Oh, very cool. The Levittown that's on Long Island as opposed to the Levittown that's in New Jersey or Pennsylvania.
Yeah, right, exactly. The original, I guess we are. I don't know.
Right. I think so. I'll have to check the history books on that one. Peter, Jared, Shay, any questions for Bruce?
Yeah, I wanted to ask. You said, did you mention wind in there as one of the parameters that you guys look for forecast accuracy?
For strong wind. Now, everybody has a different definition of strong wind. So I don't have the ability right in front of me, Shay, to pull up what our criteria is. But if you wanted to go to I think it's our FAQs on our website, it lists all the different criteria that we're looking for. For example, there's one for strong wind. It talks about a sustained wind. I think it's at 14 miles per hour over the forecast period. And then there's a gust option as well, consecutive hours with gusts over a certain miles per hour. But some of the folks in the Midwest kind of scoff at that, and they say, "You call that windy?" It's like, well, for a lot of the country, it is windy. Breezy to windy. So yeah, wind is one of the things that we're verifying the accuracy of.
I got you. So basically moderate winds plus, and then higher gusts that spike up into the higher numbers. So, I mean, I'm a wind forecaster myself along the coastal United States. So I would love to get weather rated. I don't think anybody ever has. I mean, there's a rather large niche that we're sort of filling, the team and I, and we haven't been challenged on verification. I mean, I go day to day. I try to self-verify as I'm going through each day. But there's no one standing back saying, hey, you missed your mark at for this amount of days out of a month or this many months out of a year overall for averages. It'd be nice to sort of grade it on that.
Yeah, I suppose it would be.
So I'm going to go up to Peter because I believe we have a question about someone who wants to know a little bit more about how you guys do things in really large, wide markets. Peter, what is that question?
Yeah, Dean is asking on our Facebook chat, how do I do the Lynchburg-Roanoke market, knowing that they are almost 50 miles apart?
Excellent question. And if you recall, a few minutes ago, I was talking about how some of those larger markets that we split into 2 verification areas, Roanoke, Lynchburg is one of those areas. So we have separate temperature and all verification data. They're verified separately for each of those 2 different towns.
And then overall, are they getting averaged together into one score with inside the same DMA? Is that how that equation would work from there, or?
Exactly, yeah. So we have some stations that get verified in Lynchburg, some in Roanoke. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head which ones are which. And then as a whole DMA, that's how we are determining who's the most accurate.
Gotcha. I think Dean was rattling off the stations, but I can't recall them all off the top of my head either. But perfect example of kind of varying terrains and a multiple city DMA, if you will. I don't know if that's the accurate way to describe that, but
sure, why not?
Peter, any other questions from you or our viewers online?
Nothing yet, but if there's something, I'll let you know.
One thing we didn't talk about yet was
Sure, yeah, please.
what's the forecast period?
That's a great question. What
Hey,
is the
I can't
forecast
believe
period?
we missed that one.
I know.
Hey, so the meteorologists entering their forecast today. They'll be forecasting for tomorrow night, and then let's see, today's Wednesday, right? So it'll be for Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, including the nights on those as well. So it's 4 days, 5 periods.
And do you guys do anything special if a major event, snowstorm, hurricane, or something is occurring within that period? Is there flexibility, grace, or is it just scored the exact same way?
It's scored the same way. They got to be on their toes to that's probably when it's most critical is during severe weather events. If it's a hurricane, then the wind forecast is kind of easy. They just check off strong winds and they're done with that. So that part. So
all but a guarantee in those scenarios, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm wondering how, in your experience, some of these markets play out. I mean, have you guys found in your experience that it's a tight race, it's a photo finish in many markets?
I wouldn't say in many markets, but there's definitely in some markets, it seems every year that they come down right to the wire. And I'm not sure why it isn't just certain markets every year. Maybe it's because those guys are really going at it wholeheartedly, or I should say those folks. Hard to say. But yeah, there have been some close ones in different cities. And I don't think that any of the Carolinas have been particularly close. When there's been a winner, it's usually been a clear-cut winner for that year.
And that's not to say, without naming names, that in certain areas it's a really wide gap between finishes. I would hope not.
Not usually. No, it's usually, it's interesting. I've had stations call me up. I think it was a station once in Fresno years ago, and he said, "Can we say we're the most accurate in the United States?" And I said, "Well, no, because it's not really a level playing field versus going the guys in Green Bay, Wisconsin, because Fresno is pretty simple weather, like Phoenix most of the year." So
yeah, I was gonna ask that. Like, who is like the best of the best? Do you have the highest rated news station in the country? I mean, but like you said, that the playing field is not level, and so I'm sure that varies a lot.
Yeah,
or do you have a best?
Now, the best scores definitely come in from the easy to forecast weather areas like Phoenix, Las Vegas, Fresno, and the like. And the I wouldn't say the worst scores, but the other end of the spectrum, coming from harder cities, usually up in the snow belt somewhere, like I'd say up Michigan, Wisconsin, upstate New York. Those are harder places to forecast the weather for. We've thought about coming up with a national a weighting factor. Just haven't gotten around to that project. It's something it's always been on the back of my mind, where we could have a true national champion. It would be kind of interesting to see, wouldn't it? But it's hard to get a feel for how do you make this weighting system.
So what are you saying? You'd be giving out handicaps to certain cities?
I guess you could call it that.
And, it's funny in the golf sense, because it's hard, right? In some of these areas, it's just so hard to get it nailed down. You can do the best you can based on all the information you get, but your success rate may not be as well as where you want it to be, just because the rapidly changing weather. You may have water temperatures nearby that affect it. You got high terrain, mountains. There's I couldn't imagine. I mean, I would imagine you have to levy some sort of handicap system based on
and it's funny that you use the analogy of a golf sport, because that's what we always say. And when we do our scoring algorithm that we had created it all those years ago, is that the lower the score, the more accurate your forecasts are. So it's kind of like golf in that respect as well.
I'm thinking we're going to get some angry hate mail from some meteorologists in Phoenix or elsewhere.
Oh, it's possible. It happens periodically, I would say. But you know what? We're very open to talk to folks. If they want to see the data, we share the data from their station, all the other stations in their city. There's no smoke and mirrors, and it's all, like I said, it's a lot of transparency here.
I was just looking at that list that Shay had up on the screen not too long ago, Bruce, and it looks like in June you guys announced some of the new stations to carry your certificate of most accurate approval. And I was wondering, in your own words, if you could introduce us to some of those stations.
Sure. So this is a list, not just new stations. Some of these stations have been repeating for 1, 2, or we've even got a station, a couple of stations here that have been repeating for 10 years. Yeah, we've had a handful of stations over the years. Nobody's done all 13 years, but I think I've got 1 or 2 that have gone 11 years with us. 11 years in a row is most accurate in their market. So talking about the stations in the Carolinas, we've got WBTV over, I believe that's a CBS Channel 3. Eric and his team have come out on top now 2 years in a row. In Raleigh-Durham, the folks over at ABC, Chris and his team, they're 3 years in a row as most accurate. And over in Columbia, South Carolina, Jim Gandy, WLTX, CBS. Also, he's now at 6 years in a row as most accurate, according to our research. So my congratulations go out to those guys and their teams.
Yeah, we like Jim Gandy. He's come on here quite a few.
I think we lost Shay there for a moment, but he's right.
Oh.
Yeah, we have had Jim on several times on this show. And Bruce, I guess after a few years, you guys really begin to strike up over board with these guys.
Well, yeah, some meteorologists like to send, even though we're collecting the data and we've got all the information we need, and we certainly welcome them to, if they forecasted rain. Let me backtrack just a little bit. Sure. During that first period, which would be tomorrow, we break it into 3 forecast periods. It's morning, afternoon, and evening. So 7 to noon, noon to 7 p.m., and then 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. So if we have a meteorologist, say in Kansas City, and he forecasted, he checked the box that he thinks it's going to rain in the second period, and he wants to make sure we get it. They send us clips of their radars all the time, and hey, good for them. They just want to make sure that we got all the data that we need to get, and we always welcome that data that they want to share. I don't think they share it if they're getting it wrong, though.
Then they're really quiet, right?
Yeah, I don't hear from them. But no, we welcome them. And yeah, so over the years, I've gotten to know some of the TV meteorologists, fairly well. We have to stay impartial, and we're certainly not buddy-buddy, that's for sure. But we keep it friendly.
Bruce, I got one more question as far as the data goes. When the meteorologists are compiling all the data, is there like a program that's written to enter values, or is it done spreadsheets? How is this information sort of compared and contrasted for like a viewing sheet or a percentage rate?
So you mean how are we putting the data in?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it goes into a database. I'm not a high-tech guy. We've got IT folks that did the programming for us and continue to refine things as needed. So we get the forecast data, it goes into the database, the observed data goes into the database, and then it runs the scoring calculation based on comparing the two. Does that help at all?
Yeah, I understood. Yeah,
I couldn't tell you what language it's written in. I think maybe is it Python? I think or something like that. That's out of my wheelhouse a bit.
Right. I was just curious to see if it was something that was a coded software.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Or if it was just something that they just sit down and they kind of look at things and say, okay, this was done, this is done. Because it seems like an extreme amount of data to go through.
It is. It's a lot of data processing going on. So yeah, it is. It all. That end of it is all tech.
Bruce, one of the things we talk about on this show from time to time is we try to let meteorology students, potential students who are looking to get into this field, know that there are things that they can do professionally outside of just your typical broadcast meteorologist. Nothing against it, but I think it's the first job that folks always think about. And I look at your company, and I think this is probably one of those niches where people who don't want to be on broadcast but want to be heavily involved in data and science and weather could fall into. And I'm just wondering, do you ever meet with those students, talk with those students, or if you were to, what would you tell them? What would your advice be about getting into the field that you found yourself in?
Well, obviously, I think it's very important to get a degree in meteorology or atmospheric sciences of some type. I know a lot of broadcast meteorologists. They didn't start out as meteorologists, but they've taken the courses and have earned a degree online or however they do it later on in their careers, and I think that's really excellent. With the advent of social media, I know a lot of young folks who have their own weather sites, if you will, kind of like the Carolina Weather Group. I'm sure most of you guys probably have your own weather sites, and I think that's a really excellent way to start forecasting. And maybe you want to try to find some other people in your area that you could chat with and talk about weather. I know for me, my kids are through elementary. They're in elementary and middle school now, so I always have a great time going to their classrooms and talking up weather. It's a lot of fun because they have great questions.
Do you miss the snow?
I do. That's one good thing about Arizona, though, is that you drive 2.5 hours, and you're up in the Mogollon Rim, which is the edge of the Colorado Plateau, and so you're up around 6,000 or 7,000 feet, and there's plenty of snow up there in the wintertime. And interesting that you mentioned, do I miss snow? When I was looking at universities all those years ago, the number one reason I chose SUNY Oswego, State University in New York at Oswego, is because it is literally right on the shore of Lake Ontario. And not only do you get these great wintertime snow squall events, which were just like totally cool, you get daily land sea breeze effects and so much going on. This is so much to learn and just observe right there. So a shout out to SUNY Oswego. If any young folk are out there looking for a school, I take a strong look at them.
Was your campus one of those who had like the ropes so that you could hold on to during the windy days in the snow?
That is not a myth. We actually did have ropes. There was a 10-story, between my dorm and the rest of campus, there was a 10-story dorm, and it created this wind tunnel effect. There was some trees on one side and a 10-story dorm, and it would always become a sheet of ice, and it was such a wind tunnel in there that easily the winds gusting hurricane force on a pretty regular basis through that spot there, and there were ropes in that spot in the wintertime.
I thought I had heard rumors of such. I've not been to that particular campus. We'll be up at Geneseo myself in a few weeks to visit my sister, and I know they get quite a lot of snow up there as well. So
my senior year, I think we clocked in around 320 inches of snow. It was great. It was a great year. It was fun.
I was joking with somebody earlier today about snow events in the Carolinas, which are 2 inches. So, and I can hear Peter laughing because he's outside of Philly. So at the end of the show, we're going to have angry emails from meteorologists in Phoenix and people who live in the Carolinas and like their milk and bread and eggs. Bruce, I totally forgot what my next question was going to be, but I think what I was do was kind of just open the floor up to you. I know there were a couple things that I hadn't specifically asked about, so I wanted to give you a little bit of time to walk us through anything that maybe I haven't thought to ask you yet.
There's one more thing about getting back to the young folk out there who might be interested in the career of meteorology. I was told by a former professor of mine, I visited Oswego this past summer, and I was chatting with him for quite a bit, and he was telling me that the numbers of freshmen that come into the program drops by half by second year. And I said, why? Is it too cold here at Oswego? He says, no, they don't realize how much math there is in meteorology. Because really, it's math and physics is what meteorology is. So if you're interested in weather and you want to be a meteorologist, an operational meteorologist, forecasting the weather, start honing your math skills now and practice. It really is. If you practiced it enough and learn the concepts, you could learn how to be a mathematician, which is a lot of what meteorology is. Yeah, you have a question?
No, I was just going to say, I think you guys are a perfect example of math. You need the math and the physics to do the forecasting, but then you guys are a perfect example of the data crunching that comes with all these numbers.
Yeah, that's computer math, though.
Hey, computer science is important too, right?
Yeah, I took Fortran back in the day. Yeah. So let's see. Does anybody have any questions out there?
Yeah, I was just going to ask the same question to our panel or Peter, who was watching social media. Bruce, for folks who may be playing this back at a later date, how can they reach out to you with questions?
Oh, anytime. I'm always happy to chat with people, young, old, about WeatherRate. You can reach me by email. It's bruce@weatherrate.com. And I think that's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Easy enough.
Or on our website, I think there's a contact, and it sends it to. There's an email address that sends it to me as well on the website.
That is all good information. Hopefully, you'll be hearing from folks who are listening to the show, or maybe want to get to know more about your product professionally. I know we are coming up to about 10 minutes to the 9 o'clock Eastern hour, and one of the things we recently started to introduce, but we keep forgetting to tell our guests about, but don't worry, it's not scary. I'm not going to put you on the spot too much, is we're going to do a tweet of the week. We're going to let all of the panelists share something that really stuck out to them. Typically, it's weather-related, but I suppose it doesn't have to be. I don't think we've made any official rules. So I'm going to go through the group and ask them to share a tweet. If you have something you'd like to share, that gives you a few minutes, I guess, to scroll back through your Twitter feed and see what you retweeted this week. And we'd love to just kind of get to know you a little bit better and find out what a little bit catches your eye on social. Now, with all that out of the way, I'm going to start, I guess, with Shay Gibson in Charleston, South Carolina.
Whew, thank God.
How did I know you were going to start with me? You know, one thing I did not mention earlier, and I'm going to sort of give up my tweet of the week and go with image of the week. So I did not talk about Gert. Gert sort of was coming towards the southeast coast. It hooked away from land.
Your way out of tweet of the week? I think that's what's happening right now.
Well, I'll say this. It was in a tweet of the week, but I'm pulling it out as a separate video from the Goes East imaging. So, yeah, Gert up here. Now this hooked away from land and went right between Bermuda and North Carolina. It was a strong tropical storm, and it really, once it started heading north and off to the north, northeast, and northeast, it started really strengthening. So now the winds are up to 100 miles an hour, and it is moving off to the northeast very quickly at 31 miles per hour. Let me give you an idea of the size and magnitude of this, and you can see the transverse banding just really shooting out to off to the north and the western side of the system. Still has some very strong tropical feed coming in from the south, has an eye. And this, like I said, this storm is moving very quickly off to the northeast. And this is about the time when we fire that last arrow into the burning Viking ship as it goes off to the hurricane graveyard. It is going to be gone. And once it picks up speed, it's interacting with the jet stream. It'll be interesting to see, as we watch it in time, what kind of effect it has over in Europe. You know, we talk about the effects of one system to another across the Atlantic. It'd be interesting to see what happens here. Maybe it gets caught up along the polar jet up to the north, and maybe we'll see something happen over maybe Portugal. Maybe it'll drop down over Portugal or parts of Europe to the north. So that's my image of the week.
Very, very nice, Shay. I appreciate that. I thought Gert was a very classy, old-fashioned name they went with when the folks put that list together all those years ago. Certainly caught my eye as a name I wasn't otherwise necessarily expecting. Peter, do you need me to stall and go with mine, or have you found a tweet?
I did not find a tweet, but I
Okay.
know something that I can say, social media related. A lot of people have been writing to me this week about the solar eclipse.
Yes, I've heard about this.
And some people did not realize you have to wear glasses, certain kind of glasses, to view the eclipse, because if you don't, you will be blind. So just telling everybody, there you go. Look at Jared right now. Those are the kind of glasses you need. And I heard there were some that were, what's the word I'm looking for? Not
Not going to protect you.
Yeah, not going to protect you pretty much. They were fake glasses. So make sure you know.
You know what's funny?
From.
I'm going to cut you off for just a second, Peter, because as
Go
you're
ahead.
talking about being able to see things clearly, your camera has turned to complete digital snow. And folks, this is what the solar eclipse will look like if you have eclipse glasses.
This is what happens. This is what's going to happen Monday. Don't have your webcams on. But yeah, so wear certain kind of glasses. Don't wear your sunglasses. Don't look directly at it because it will not be good.
Yeah.
So,
But if you don't look
yeah.
directly at it, it's still okay to go outside.
Yes.
It's that's my other favorite part about all this. I'm just watching. I'm watching the snow fall on Peter's screen right now. See what happened, Peter? You said it had been a boring summer, and now it's snowing wherever you're
Now
sitting.
it's snowing in August. Nothing surprises me anymore.
Well, we were just talking about Oswego, so it's appropriate.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
I was going to mention the eclipse. We do have a whole hour previously done here in the Carolina Weather Group that you can find on our website, on our YouTube channel, and elsewhere if you want to learn more about the solar eclipse. This Monday, everybody. If you don't have those glasses yet, good luck. Jared's got the glasses, and do you have a tweet of the week for us?
I do, and in fact, it's a tweet of just about an hour ago. Let me get my screen shared here real quick. This is while we were talking, there was a really great photogenic thunderstorm that fired up over Daniel Island, South Carolina, and this was kind of after the storm, or around sunset, by Kristen Walker. She's a realtor in Charleston, and she's been we've followed each other on Twitter for years. And this, of all of the pictures that have been shared this evening, this one really has caught my eye. You've got the sun bouncing off the cirrus there, and then you see you can see the convection and the right frame there, and it's just I just love this. Sunsets here are fantastic, and that's just a wonderful example of just how gorgeous Charleston can be. So
I appreciate your weather information and also your little tourism plug there. That's right. Beautiful sunsets in Charleston, South Carolina, and across a lot of I think the Carolinas. We've had quite the pretty sunsets and also the thunderstorms. And that's what brings me to my tweet of the week. Taking a look at this here, I've got it up on that one screen, and now let me do a little of this and a little bit of that to make sure folks watching on Facebook are seeing it as well too. This is a tweet that I put out earlier in the week because we weren't getting a pretty sunset, but instead we were getting lots of storm clouds rolling in. And I don't know if you can see right here where it says townhouse and all of those little thunderbolts around it. It was an intense amount of lightning, and I'm really surprised we didn't lose power. Although there was about 6,000 Duke Energy customers in South End, just south of the metropolitan Charlotte area, who were without power due to a non-weather related reason. They lost power just before the storms. They were told power would be back in 2 hours. Then this rolled in, and the power was not back in 2 hours because it was clearly not safe to be outside for anyone. So it was quite a thunderstorm. And if you are listening or watching us from the Charlotte area, I think you know exactly which storm I was talking about from just the other night. Bruce, any social media activities, any photos that come to mind that you want to share with our folks tonight?
You know, I have some great photos from recent storms, but unfortunately, I don't have them ready to show you guys. So
that's our fault.
Maybe I'll shoot it over to you. You can share it another week.
Sure. And are you on Twitter? Is that a place where folks can find you or your company?
Unfortunately, I am not on Twitter.
Okay.
We're not very socially media active, knowledgeable for that matter.
Our guests last week were very Twitter pro, but very negative on Facebook. So we kind of I think, run that gamut, run that spread. So not a problem at all. I know we're coming up at the top of the hour, 9 Eastern here. Bruce, anything else you wanted to add? Anything else I may have forgotten as we talked about weather rate?
I think we've covered pretty good. I want to again thank you for having me on today. When Scotty extended the invitation to me, I was like, oh, this sounds like it'll be a lot of fun, and it did not fail. Had a lot of fun chatting with you guys this evening.
Well, we had a lot of fun chatting with you as well, and we appreciate you coming on, and we hope folks across the United States, as they are watching their local weather broadcast, now when they see that most accurate seal, they'll know exactly what it's about, and they can even put a face behind it now as well, too. So thanks to you and your team. Appreciate your time this evening. I know we have a couple other shows coming up to tell you about next week at this time. And this is where also gets us every week. Somebody tell our producer that we need to print out the list of upcoming events every week. But I know next week we are going to be talking about reporting from the field. And we're going to be going behind the scenes into weather broadcast and finding out exactly what some of those things are when you are watching the Weather Channel, when you're watching your local news, to find out a little bit about what goes into some of those broadcasts. that you are seeing. So that's going to be another great show coming next week, August the 23rd. It's called Reporting from the Disaster Zone, and you're not going to want to miss it. We're going to have Reynolds Wolf and his producer, Mike. I hope I don't mispronounce your last name, Fomil. Anybody know? He'll tell me next week exactly how to say his name. But we're going to be right here next week, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about that eclipse that is coming up on Monday as well. And again, you can go to CarolinaWeatherGroup.com, search for eclipse, find our entire hour all about safety. And please, folks, do plan ahead if you're going to be going out and about. We expect quite a bit of traffic down here in the Carolinas that day. So if you are making the drive down, do keep that in mind. And also, if you are leaving from the New Jersey, Philadelphia region area, do swing by and give Peter a ride because he seems to be a little stranded.
James, I need to add to that as well. If you live along the coast, especially Charleston or along the strip of total darkness where the eclipse is going to be going by, there's a lot of federal agencies and local task force agencies that are treating this as a national event, almost like a national disaster. It's not one, but it has potential to become one with the traffic, the logistics. The schools are out, so be aware that the traffic on the road is going to be at an all-time high. We're talking up to 1 million+ people flooding this area on top of the population already here. The beaches will be crowded. Anywhere in the coastal, don't go to the Ravenel bridges. Don't plan on going up. They're already closing the Ravenel Bridge on the pedestrian side. They don't want people hanging around up there, creating more of a problem for traffic. So there's a lot of things going on here. Just make sure to tune in to your local news outlets and find out some of the best places to go to if you don't know already. We will be doing forecasts for the eclipse. It's better to wait till about 5 days out. We're almost there where we can start talking about cloud cover and weather patterns, but we just don't know yet. So we've already started getting a lot of questions on that as well. Your best bet typically this time of the year is along the immediate coast where the sea breeze is keeping things a little bit clearer and drier and pushing the clouds inland. So if you're a little bit inland, you may not have as much of a view, or maybe we'll have some kind of frontal activity or troughing overhead to provide some other type of clouding, or it could be a clear day. So we don't really know yet. It's just one of those things you have to wait and see. But the main thing is making sure that you have a safe place to be and don't stop on interstates or highways or anywhere where it's dangerous. Get yourself in a safe spot and have an exit plan or a camp out and wait plan. So that's usually the best bet, is to kind of camp out and wait for the traffic to thin out.
Yeah, bring some food, bring some water, find a nice
water,
big field.
Definitely water. It's going to be hot. It will be hot on Monday.
And don't drive while wearing these. Just
no.
You're blind if you don't use them. You're blind if you are, but at least you can take off the blindness when it's done. So
tell the oncoming traffic to turn their brights on for you, Jared.
On that note, when the story came out earlier in the week that Amazon had reached out to people to refund if they had bought counterfeit eclipse goggles, the local broadcasters, WBTV, in fact, who are on Bruce's list, made a really good recommendation to find out whether or not you have counterfeit glasses. And it's just what you said, Jared. If you put them on and you see anything, they're not legitimate glasses, because you should see nothing. There is nothing in your house that has the power of the sun. So if you are seeing it, then the sun is definitely going to be too bright for you. So I thought that was good advice. Either way, we do look forward to hopefully stream that event as well too. So if for some reason you are in a place where it is too cloudy to see the eclipse, or if you're Peter, you can hopefully check it out on our Facebook page. So Bruce, thank you again for your time, and thanks to our listeners for joining us here on this Wednesday night. We will see you back on Wednesday, and please do enjoy the eclipse on Monday.